The Final Fantasy series now has 16 parts, and I became curious about what this franchise is all about. So I completed the first part, and I'm going to tell you what this game was about. Let's get started. The world is shrouded in darkness. The winds die, the seas rage, the earth decays. But people believe in the prophecy and patiently awaiting its fulfillment. When darkness veils the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. After a long journey, 4 young travelers finally appear, and in the hand of each clutch a crystal. In the castle Cornelia, we are told that the king is searching for the warriors of light from the prophecy. The king sees our crystals and says, "It's just as Lucan's prophecy foretold. When darkness veils the world, 4 warriors of light shall come." He asks to save his daughter Sarah. The chancellor explains that the king's knight Garland has abducted his daughter and is in the Chaos Shrine, which lies to our north. They attempted to rescue her, but Garland is the best swordman in the kingdom, and they have none who can match him. The king says he has heard we want to travel. So, if we save the princess, he promises to rebuild the northern bridge as a token of gratitude, which was lost long ago. By the way, you need to talk to everyone resident, because most have the information we need, but I figured this out about halfway through the game. Now the gameplay begins, where we run through locations and fight mobs, thereby leveling up and earning local currency. With this we can buy useful potions, armors, weapons and spells for my 2 mages. I'm heading to the Chaos Shrine to kick Garland's ass. Entering inside, I find him not even trying to harass the princess. This idiot wants to exchange her for the kingdom and rule it. Noticing us, he says he is tougher than us and will kick our 4 asses. Well, let's see. He's dead. Princess Sora thanks us and says she's amazed that someone could defeat Garland. We escort her to the castle. The king thanks us and ensures that we truly are the warriors of light from Lucan's prophecy, which we need to hear entirely. And the king quotes, "When darkness veils the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. If they cannot gather the shards of light, darkness will consume all. The 4 crystals will never shine." This means there are 4 crystals we need to restore. He also says that the one of the crystal can be found on the continent to our north. Restoring the light to the crystal is their only hope of ridding off the world of monsters. The princess gives us the loot that Garland stole, and the king orders the bridge to be built. I leveled up to the 10th level and set off on an adventure. So our quest began. As the 4 warriors of light, they were overwhelmed by the great task before them. They didn't even know the true significance of the crystals in their hands. Crystals that once had light shining brightly. It's time to cast off the veil of darkness and bring light to the world. We come across the witch Matoya's cave, who can't see without her crystal eye and bumps into things. Someone stole it. Then we reach the town Pravoka, where pirates are rampaging, causing the people to suffer. So we run into these pirates and kick their butts. Their captain wets in his pants, gives the ship to us, and promises to become a good person and the hardest worker in town. The woman tells us that elves lives across the sea, but their prince has fallen into a deep sleep and hasn't woken up. We arrived in Elfheim by ship. We are asked to help the prince. We go to the elfin castle. The guards tell us that the curse of the dark elf king Astus put the prince into a deep sleep, from which he cannot awaken. And he also took the treasure from the fortress. The healer says the prince has been sleeping for 5 years. There must be some concoction that can rouse who sleeps, but he doesn't know where to get it. There is also a room that can only be opened with the mystic key. There is one in the Cornelia as well, but more on that later. We find an almost ruined castle, where the king tells us that Astos deceived him and his castle fell into ruins. If only he could retrieve the crown from the marsh cave, he could restore his castle. He asks us to bring the crown. We find the marsh cave. After obtaining the crown, we bring it to the king. He laughs and says we are fools who fell into his trap, and he is Astos. It turns out he stole Matoya's crystal eye to combine its power with the crown we brought and become the true king of elves. God, he's so ugly. and that we get the crystal eye. So we head to the witch to return her eye. In gratitude she gives us a jewel tonic, which of course rouses the elf prince from his slumber. The prince gives us a misty key that can open any door. Then we find the mountain where dwarves live, including the smith, who dreams of adamantine to forge a magic sword. There is also Nerik, who needs nitro powder to blow up a rock blocking our way to the other locations, and for his personal purposes. Nitro powder is in the castle Cornelia, in the room you can open only with the mystic key. I got it, brought it to Nerik, and we used it. Nerik went on his business, and now I can proceed. We arrive at Melmond. The residents tell us that a vampire attacked them, destroyed the church, and left the town in ruins. The earth is decaying, and they can't do anything about it. A sage says that there is the Cavern of Earth on the Devil's Tail Island, to the south of Melmond. It used to be the closer you got to that cave, the more fertile the soil. Now this land is barren. We enter the giant's cave, who doesn't let us pass. So we go to the Cavern of Earth. In this cave, we find the vampire who attacked the church. He says the seal cannot be broken, so the land will rot. He also says mortals cannot kill the undead, meaning him. But we prove otherwise, and we get a star ruby. We proceed further, but the stone slab blocks the passage, emanating an evil force from within. So we go to the giant's cave, give him the ruby, and he lets us pass further, to the sage Sada's cave. He already knows we defeated the vampire, and says he was just a servant. The monster damaging the earth crystal is lurking much deeper in the cave. Sada gives the earth rod to us. With it, we open the passage and find Lich, the Earth Fiend. He's asking for a fight, so we beat him up and he disappears from the face of the earth. We place one of the crystals and restore this one. We continue our journey and arrive at Crescent Lake, where 20 sages reside, including Lucan, who prophesied our arrival. They tell us that the 4 feet of chaos block the power of the crystals, claiming it their own. These are the crystals of fire, earth, water, and wind. These forces compose our world. The source of these crystals is the altars scattered across the world. So we're asked to defeat those fools and bring the crystals we carry to these altars, and the crystals will shine again. The 4 fiends plot to rule the world, both past and present. 400 years ago, the Fiend of Wind appeared. 200 years after him, the Fiend of Water appeared. Together they laid waste to the civilization in the north. The Fiend of Earth rots the land. When the Fiend of Fire passes, everything is consumed by flames. The volcano mount rises to the west of this town. The Fiend of the Fire long slept within its passages. But she awoke 200 years before her time, and they asked me to defeat her, because she noticed we kicked the Earth Fiend's butt. Finally, they give us a canoe, which will help us across rivers and lakes that the ship can't reach. We find the mountain and enter. We descend quite deep, running on lava. We find her, Mary Leaf. She shamefully lost to us in battle, because we leveled up so much on the way that even such bosses are not scary. The only difference in the HP. Now we restore the fire crystal. In the Crescent Lake there is a guy who chased the Levistone for 10 years and hints that there is a cave to the north, so we go there. It's the ice cave that indeed has a Levistone that can lift things into the air. I didn't quite understand how to use it yet, so I decided to sail around the other 2 continents, but I could only get to the Citadel of Trials. There, a sage saw my crown and realizes that we are cool guys and gives us a trial. We approach to the throne and get teleported to the room with teleports, through which we have to pass to get a red tail, a symbol of courage that will come in handy later. So what to do next? That's when I started talking to all the NPCs, and the elves hinted that an airship is buried in the sand sea below the Crescent, which turned out to be located near Crescent Lake. Now we can go anywhere. We begin our journey in Lufenia. where people speak a language we don't understand so far. So we flew to the Gaia, which foreigners often call the Hawk's Eye. To the north, there is an ancient city known as the Hawk's Wing or Lufenia. The green-haired girl tells us that they had a fairy living in their spring, but she hasn't been seen lately, and no one knows what happened to her. And young boy tells us about special oxide water that flows at the bottom of their spring, but only the fairy can draw it out. Another guy talks about the Mirage Tower, which I can't enter yet. I tried. A scientist told us a legend about the sky people who could soar in the sky and build castles above the clouds. Another scientist mentioned that there was a scholar who studied the Lufenian language, but he can't remember his name. We ran into an idiot pirate who says he caught the fairy and sold her to a caravan. Idiot! So, before heading out to find the caravan, I decided to check out these caves. It turns out there are dragons living there, and in one of the caves resides their king named Bahamut. The king looks inside a person to measure their courage. Bahamut says it's been a long time since he has seen such brave people. Sees that we have a red tail, he acknowledges our courage and strength. This way, he upgrades us so powerfully that our heroes' hairstyles and image even changed. We explore the location and find Onrak, where we learn that 200 years ago a shrine sank into the sea, and now mermaids live there. This girl told us where the caravan is located. Several NPCs talked about a shining object that fell from the sky, and only this guy said it fell somewhere near the waterfall in the north. This girl made a submarine to save the mermaids living at the bottom of the sea, but she can't do it because of a lack of air on the bottom. The sage told us that the shrine of water flourished 20 years ago. It brimmed with the power of water, so he wants us to restore this power to its former grace. There is also the brother of the scientist Una, which lives in Melmond, who it turns out can learn the Luferian language if he has the Rosetta Stone. Information obtained. We sail the waterfall cave. There we encounter a golem, as I understand it, who gives us a warp cube. Next, we find the caravan and buy the fairy in the bottle. We return her to Gaia to let her out, and she immediately flees to her spring. There, she explains that she was scared. That's why she ran away. No wonder she was caught by drunk pirates and sold. In gratitude for her rescue, she draws out the oxide from the spring, which will help us breathe underwater. So this girl lets us use the submarine to save the mermaids. We descend into the sunken shrine and free mermaids. One of them said that one of their friends went out and never returned. It seems it was the girl who made a submarine. That's why she disappeared so strangely. Another one asks to restore the crystal of water. Another told us the fiend of water resides on the lowest level. And that's where we need to go. In one of the rooms we find the Rosetta Stone. This fool says he didn't expect to see us here. Well, okay, present you faced, we'll beat it. He turned out to be a bit tougher than the previous ones, but he wasn't difficult. We restored the third crystal. After that we fly to Una to give him the Rosetta Stone. He makes sure it is indeed the Rosetta Stone, jumps with joy, learns the Luferian language himself and then teaches us. We enter Lufenia and learn the following. They are descendants of the sky people who lived on the clouds. The airship was built by their ancestor Sid. There is a flying castle in the sky, which can be accessed through the Mirage Tower. Finally, they give us a chime that will help us enter this tower. And they also said that Fiend of Wind is the toughest of the 4 elemental fiends. I entered the tower and gradually climbed to the top. In this place we need the warp cube, which helps us enter the flying fortress. There we find adamantine and learned from the observation window that 4 forces of elements appear as mist converging on the single point. This point in the Chaos Shrine. Noted. Finally we reach Tiamat, the Fiend of Wind, and defeat him. The wind crystal is restored. We give the adamantine to Smith, who forges Excalibur for us. Now we are cool and fly to the Chaos Shrine, where we direct the light of our crystals at the Black Crystal. Now we can travel 2000 years back to the same place. Here we find much younger versions of all four fiends, which we defeat one by one. After that we encounter Garland, who turns out to be saved by the four great powers by sending him to the past, so he is alive. Upon arriving here, he sent the four fiends to the future, where they would send him back to the past. Thus, he created an endless cycle, in which he will be constantly reborn again and again. And it turns out he is Chaos, not Garland. For some reason, 2000 years from this part he remembers none of this. But yes, he is Chaos, and he is the strongest. I even had to retreat and level up my heroes to such levels. This helped me defeat this idiot. After that, the text appears, which says the following. The time loop was severed at last. The endless struggle that raged over 2000 years had ended, and peace prevailed once more. The light of the four crystals restored the forces of wind, water, earth and fire. There was a mere trick of fate that had given rise to the chain of Garland's wrath, but magnified by the four forces meant to guide our world, that trick of fate also gave birth to the fiends. Monsters had run rampant as the world sank into darkness, but all that is now past. With the four forces flowing as they were meant, the warriors prepared to cross time and returned to the world they knew, a world where Princess Sarah, Queen Jane and even Garland himself await. When was this fateful day that sent time spiraling into a loop? None can say. It seemed the cycle into which time had fallen would last forever, but the bravery of four young travelers changed that. They took the forces that filled the world with darkness and used them to bathe the world in light. None will ever recall the struggle the four endured, for the breaking of the chain means that it never existed. But within the tales of fantasy that people tell, the memory of their deeds lives on. Tales of dwarves and elves, of dragons and shining civilizations that reached for the heavens even as they fell. And now their return is upon us. With the memory of their struggle buried deep in their hearts, they will quietly march over our world. Remember always that the forces of the world must be used as they were intended. The power of the light must never be used for dark, and the true crystals reside in your heart. For you are the warriors who cross time, you are the bringer of light. You know, I enjoyed this so much that I'll continue playing this series of game until I get tired of it. So you know which video we'll see each other in next.